On November 9, 1967, NASA launched the first Saturn V moon rocket test flight, Apollo 4. See photos of the launch and Earth from space from the amazing Apollo 4 mission here. This image, gigantic, at 363 feet tall, the Apollo Saturn V space vehicle stands at attention at Launch Complex 39 on Pad A on November 8, 1967, ready to launch. Apollo 4 unmanned Earth orbital space mission launched on November 9, 1967. The U rests securely atop the SICSII assembly. The unmanned Apollo 4 mission will test craft safety during launch and re-entry for upcoming planned manned missions. A technician puts the final welds on the liquid oxygen tank for the unmanned Apollo 4 mission. As the final assembly operation begins, the instrument unit U is prepared for mating to the SICSII assembly in the VAB high bay. The Saturn V vehicle, following the assembly operation, stands at the ready after the work platform was removed and before being rolled out to the launch pad. On June 20, 1967, the Apollo spacecraft 017 is positioned in the high bay area of the vehicle assembly building. The capsule will be mated with the Saturn V launch vehicle for the Apollo 4 space mission. Aboard a crawler transporter on August 26, 1967, the Apollo 4 stack spacecraft 017 and Saturn 501 attached to its mobile launch tower are moved from the vehicle assembly building to Launch Complex 39 Pad A at Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. The complete Apollo Saturn 501 launch vehicle, mated to the Apollo spacecraft 017, sits on the launch pad after its ride over on the crawler transporter. Early on the morning of November 9, 1967, the Apollo 4 spacecraft sits on Pad A at Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39 within a awe-inspiring backdrop of sunrise. A successful launch of the Apollo 4 space mission, made of the Apollo spacecraft 017 and the Saturn 501, headed to space on November 9, 1967. The rocket launched from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The Apollo 4 unmanned flight was designed as a test of the translunar motors and of the high-speed entry required for a manned flight on return from the Moon. The Apollo 4 space mission launched from Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39 Pad A on November 9, 1967. During its 8.5-hour journey, the mission successfully completed 2 mission objectives. During the Apollo 4 unmanned Earth orbital flight on November 9, 1967, 2 objectives were successfully met. Flight information on the structural integrity and compatibility of the launch vehicle and spacecraft, flight loads, stage separation, subsystem operation and emergency detection subsystem was gathered. The mission also successfully evaluated the Apollo command module heat shield under re-entry conditions as well. As the aft interstage slips farther away, the Apollo 4 second stage J2 engines fire. During the unmanned Apollo 4 mission, the aft interstage separates from the SII stage. From an orbit of around 10,000 miles above Earth, while the Apollo 4 spacecraft was still attached to the SIVB third stage, this stunning image of Earth was taken. The 70mm camera was programmed to take a series of images from high apogee while looking west, including coastal Brazil, the Atlantic Ocean, West Africa and Antarctica. As the Apollo 4 orbits Earth at 8,628 nautical miles above, this breathtaking view of the Atlantic Ocean and Antarctica was captured. On November 9, 1967, the Apollo 4 Command Service Module waits in the ocean northwest of Honolulu, Hawaii, for the recovery vessel to retrieve it. The prime recovery ship for the Apollo 4 mission, the USS Bennington, was on hand after the spacecraft splashed down just under 1,000 nautical miles from Honolulu, Hawaii. The crew lifts the spacecraft aboard with the flotation collar still attached. The Apollo spacecraft 017 command module suffered charring on the heat shield from the extreme heat of re-entering the atmosphere. The heat shield of the Apollo spacecraft 017 command module, aboard the USS Bennington, was charred during re-entry by the extreme heat. Bennington was the prime recovery ship for the unmanned Apollo 4 Earth orbital space mission. The command module splashed down on November 9, 1967, 934 nautical miles northwest of Honolulu, Hawaii.